And we are here with Tidal Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition in conjunction with our broadcast partners at Tri-X 57. I'm Joe Martucci. He's Dan Skeldon. She's Palma Shiles. We're going to have our guest Angela Anderson on in just a few minutes. Everybody, we are wrapping up the month of July. The water's been really warm in the ocean. I said this was the one thing I couldn't stop thinking about in last week's episode. It's just like the complete opposite of last summer. I mean, we had so much upwelling. We were in the 50s. It was like hot on the sand, cold in the ocean. I feel like nature is balancing itself out with this warm water. Palma, you live on the water quite literally. So how's the water over there in Atlantic City?
I definitely noticed a significant difference from last summer.
Yeah.
So now I am, getting my feet wet a little bit this summer. I
Right.
usually require the water to be like 80 degrees to go swimming, but I put on a brave face and I do it. So
I remember when I went to like the beach in Florida for the first time. This was about maybe 10 years ago. And I was like, once I went there, it kind of broke me. I was like, New Jersey just gets colder and colder. I feel like the more and more I go to Florida, but I still love it. Still love the Jersey Shore. Dan, where are you on ocean waters and swimming? Are you it's got to be 80 guy, or are you? I feel like you tough it out.
I'm a New Englander, so now granted it was South Coast in New England, not East Coast, which is really cold, like Boston to Maine. But South Coast, we still get the Gulf Stream, and 70 was good for me. But I'm like Palma. I mean, I'll gladly take an 80. In New Jersey, you're not guaranteed that. I also love the year we were treated to that tropical greenish water. I love to throw that into the mix in August, but that may be even a taller order than 80 degrees to fulfill.
And speaking of someone who's on the water, our guest for today, Angela Anderson. She is with the Long Beach Township Field Station in Long Beach Island. And the LBT Field Station, if you haven't been there, is right on the bay. You could throw a rock into the bay from where she is, probably from her window. If she opened up her window, she could probably, she's nodding her head. She can hit the bay from where she is. Angela, welcome to the show. We appreciate you having you on. And where are you on this water temperature thing? What's comfortable for Angela to get into the ocean and the bay?
I'm pretty easy. I don't mind a cold dip.
Okay. All right. Are you towing in there in like November still when it's
November probably. I'll put my feet in.
Okay.
For a wash through. But every day that I go on the beach and walk my dog all winter long, I always end the walk, no matter how cold, with a face of ocean water. My doctor told me it was just good for the soul. So any chance you got to do that, so I'll do that in the winter.
Well, hey, I think we could all agree. Any chance to be by the ocean, we're all by the ocean. Plenty is good enough for us. All right, so Angela, you've been with Long Beach Township, for a while. You're very involved in the sustainability, environmental aspect of things, making your home in Long Beach Island. Tell us what the Long Beach Township Field Station does. What kind of activities do they have for our listening audience who might be in LBI for the rest of the summer?
Well, it's a very special place. We're located in the Holgate section of Township, which is the southernmost section of Long Beach Township and Long Beach Island. We are Township. We are 12 of the 18 miles, as everybody might not know, tip to tip. So we're almost at the very southern tip here, the very first town when you get out of Beach Haven. The field station is a very special place in that the township decided that this was a good idea, to create this research and education facility right on the water for improved public access, kind of where you're just introducing people to what's happening here, but you're also bumping into some real-time scientists at the same time downstairs in the lab. So that kind of combo package. I always say traditionally maybe a university would come to a municipality and say, hey, can we lease some land? And, we got this idea. We kind of did it the opposite way, to really improve the public access and capabilities of learning about the bay ecosystem. Almost entirely everything we do here is focused on our local area, species and things like that. So we have daily programs in the summertime We have, of course, Terrapin Tuesdays, our most popular. You know, you get to hold a baby turtle. You really can't, you know, compete with that. And then in the off season, it's my office, literally, and that's where I do all my writing and all the work for the resilience and the sustainability stuff. But the summer programs run end of June through the end of August, so you can check out the calendar, and it's all family friendly programming.
Angela, how, I mean, LBI, you know, people going to the Jersey Shore, you know, they're thinking, all right, we're going to be boating and beaching and swimming. And like, how do you compete with like all the touristy stuff that tourists know about versus the great programs that you offer, but, you know, maybe, you know, not at the first thing at the top of the mind of people vacationing down the shore?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to people come down here to do all that stuff, and they're doing it because they love something about the ecosystem or the ecology of the area. Yeah, you know, maybe some people come down, you know, to go to the bar, which is a little bit different, or something like that. But you generally are in love with this place because of something that is you know, the sunset, the beach, the fish that you're eating. So that's our hook. You know what I mean? It's really kind of touching people, you know, where it is. And then this description of what they're actually seeing and why they love it kind of deepens, I think. And that the families can come here, and it's an open place. I think when people come, I feel like they're like, I never knew it was here. And I'm like, because it wasn't, right? But when we get that they discovered us somehow. Now we've opened in 2021, so we're really getting on the map. That's what you're doing it for. They're just like, gosh, I wish this was here, you know, when I was younger, and coming down here more often and things like that. So I think it's just, you're really just finding that sneaky way of tapping into what they love already.
And Angela, follow-up question. Do you have regulars then? You know, you mentioned like bars. You know, bars have regulars. Yeah, do you find
Yes.
like you have the same families coming back year
All
after?
the time. Oh yeah. Even week to week. A couple of them, I'm just ready to put a township field station hat on the one little boy and have him, you know, take over the whole shell recycling education program that we run downstairs. You know, he knows that he's 7, 8 years old, and he's been coming here a couple of years. So that creates community, and I love that. You know, I spend most of my time just outside, you know, just talking to people. We have different groups that come in and run the programming, and then we have specific programs that we just run to kind of tote all the things we're doing with the Bay Island stuff and our shell recycling and oyster reef development stuff. So baked in stuff, and then the invited guests, but definitely regulars. We are starting a new camp this year with Marine Logics Camp. And we're going to try that. In the surveys we've done, people said they were looking for maybe something that was a few hours long, where they could have their kids do a camp. So we're going to try that this first year. So we'll see how it goes.
Now, what do you? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I just want to give a shameless plug to Angela and I, because I will be at the Long Beach Township Field Station on August 21st. So if you have free time the morning of August 21st, it's a Thursday, come on by. I'm going to be doing weather forecasts with you. We're going to set up a mock forecast. We're going to shoot. You're going to be a meteorologist. You're probably going to be more like Dan Skeldon than me, because he's a better meteorologist than I. So, you know, I'm just facilitating it to be like Dan Skeldon, you know, that day.
Yes. And you're a regular. You've been here since.
I have been. Yeah. I think since the
Forever.
beginning, right?
Yep,
Since 2021. Anyway, Palm, I had to get that shameless plug out of the way. So go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I might have to pay you guys a visit then, huh?
Definitely. But you got to like bribe your daughter until she has to sleep in order for her to come see the turtles.
Yes, before the show, I was just telling everyone how I have not had a good night's sleep in a little while, because my 2-year-old is going through a phase where she wants me to sleep in her toddler bed with her. So that's been fun. But anyway, Angela, what are some of the most, you know, common questions or interests that you see people have when they do come visit you at the field station?
Well, you can't miss it when you come down the street and you see this giant pile of shell right in the middle of the parking lot. So I'm very limited in my parking, and I've taken half of that up with our recycled shell. Long Beach Township's been recycling oyster and clam shell from the restaurants on our island since 2017. So they come down, they see this giant pile of shell. Some of it's bagged up, some of it's loose. So people are immediately like, what is that? What do you do with the shell? Like what, so that is an immediate thing. So our shell recycling and our oyster reef replica tank, we have a saltwater tank that Stockton University provided to us, and we have that down in our lab. So that really draws people in. But the word on the street is all about the turtles. People are like, is this a turtle preserve? I heard someone told me that you guys have turtles here, but so there's some of like those obvious things that you're really seeing, but the shell is the curiosity, because it's this shell that I have here right now is my 2023 shell. So it's piling up, but we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing with that shell later, I guess.
That we will. That's a great segue to our first break too, Angela. Thank you for that. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back on the other side with Tidal Flooding Talk. Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly Tidal Flooding Talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more.
Welcome back to this week's Tidal Flooding Talk with my co-host Joe and Palma. We're great to be joined by Angela Anderson, who, among other things, Angela, let me get this right. You are the Oyster Master Guild Certified Ambassador.
Indeed.
What does that entail?
Well, the Oyster Master Guild was something that was formed by Julie Q and Shucker Patty. They are longtime global oyster experts. I met Julie when I produced a film called The Oyster Farmers in 2017 about our oyster resurgence in our bay here. And she is this expert, and what they found when they were traveling the world talking about experts and talking about oysters and in the cultural sense, historic sense, and in the food and in the ecosystem sense, they created this curriculum, and they have different phases of certification up to to a real, like almost like a sommelier for wine, where you would get trained in oysters. So I am at the entry level. I've fulfilled the program curriculum to be an ambassador. And this way now everybody's kind of saying and speaking the same language about oysters on a global scale.
Interesting. Okay.
Well,
Awesome.
I happen to love oysters while eating them. But so speaking of, does coastal flooding impact, our oyster population and how I guess the quality and how we get them?
Yeah. So I think what's interesting for our all everywhere from the Barnegat Bay all the way down to around to the Delaware Bay, the oyster industry in New Jersey has grown exponentially over the last 10 years. There's more oyster farms, every day as we go through, Ocean, Atlantic, Cape May County. You're starting to see farming. So it's really this new way of bringing back what used to exist in our history, right? Oysters all the time. There was oyster reefs back to Lenny Lenape days. So there's sort of this like circle in this where, you can't bring this industry back unless the water quality is there. So the water quality is telling us that we're ready for oyster growth and we're ready for oyster reef restoration work in our area. But that, as farmers, they're up against it just like a dirt farmer is. These guys are truly farmers. They've achieved kind of status in New Jersey with the right to farm, like where they have those same protections, because those ecosystemic changes that are happening, with our weather and our climate are impacting them like they would any other farming industry. So there is a lot of challenges, and oysters are one of the most regulated foods that we have. So it is something that we eat raw. And it has this, you're either terrified or you're in love and excited about it. So they really are very regulated, and they're very, sensitive to, temperature and flooding and things like that. But they're a keystone species, and they have always been important to New Jersey and New York in this region. So a system without them is just not healthy. So having this keystone species back, even through aquaculture, but then the work that we're going to do for the restoration, it completes the cycle. It completes the cycle to have that, bay to table, back to bay. And that's a true New Jersey, champion story that the oyster
Yeah.
is.
I think you're right. I think you either love them or you hate them for sure. There's really no middle ground there. What about you, everybody here? How do you feel about eating raw oysters?
I love them, but they don't love me. I've developed a seafood allergy as I've gotten older.
No.
So
I do
I
love
used to
them.
love them.
Yeah.
Are you in the same boat, Dan? Same.
No. I have no allergies, thankfully, and I do love them. So I'm glad I'm not allergic to them.
Gotcha. All right, Angela, a lot of the work that I think you're most proud of, and hopefully, something we're going to see fully come to fruition here is, the Bay Island restoration for a few islands off of Long Beach Township. And in fact, just earlier this month, I read in the Sandpaper, shout out to the Sandpaper, that Long Beach Township got additional funding and permits for the Clam Cove project. So round of applause for that. That's great. But let's talk to everybody about what is the Clam Cove project and how are you getting this additional funding?
So Clam Cove is a 22-acre parcel just to the south of where my office is in Holgate. It is Marsh Bay Island on the western side, and it leads all the way up to the boulevard here in Holgate. And we call it Clam Cove Reserve. The township purchased that parcel with our open space trust in partnership with Ocean County's Natural Land Trust. And we are 51% owner, they're 49, so it's ours. Some people listening might remember, during Sandy, there was an area that, in Holgate, we refer to it as the washover site, where the dune kind of got pushed over into the marsh area and created this whole area. That's the parcel that we are focusing on. So no more potential for building now that the sand was on top of the marsh. The area that we're focusing on is that southwestern edge of Clam Cove, which used to be a peninsula with a small pond in it and is now broken off and is an island. The whole project is really through the New Jersey Bay Island Initiative, which is a coalition of agencies and groups that we formed back in 2020 to look at the Bay Islands in New Jersey in a holistic way. And we started a database of all of the islands. Right now, our database that you can link off of the bayislands.org, NewJerseyBayIslands.org website. We have a database where we have 160 islands in Barnegat, Little Egg, Harbor Bay. And I think that really surprises people that there's that many of these Marsh Bay Islands in that database. Some of them are sunk. And really what you can do is you can go on an island, you can see how it's been behaving for 40 years to see its potential for restoration. So we got a grant about 3 years ago to utilize that Bay Island Restoration Planner to identify islands off of the township that are going to be important for the things that we would talk about today: coastal resilience, community resilience, flood mitigation, livability, things like that. These are marsh islands, they're wetlands, and they're absolutely essential for back bay flooding. They're tidewater sponges, they're habitats, they're speed bumps for storm surge. So once, we started to identify these islands, we got another grant to focus on two, and the top two are Clam Cove and Western Marsh Shelter, which is in Spray Beach. And we also own part of that island. And the idea is to utilize our shell to either stabilize or try to restore the islands back to their original size and maintain that habitat and the necessary ecosystem services that they provide to us. So we're focusing specifically on Clam Cove for a project now because federal money takes, a lot of, these grants are big and huge and take a long time, and permit processes for bigger projects. We're honing in on just a small section of Clam Cove that we just got permits for and additional corporate funding for to do a proof of concept pilot oyster reef there. And we're going to start in September, and we're stoked.
Awesome. Well, I see the happiness in your face, and we hope it goes well. We're going to take one more break, and then we'll wrap it up here with Angela Anderson on Tidal Flooding Talk.
You're watching Tidal Flooding Talk. We're brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, and we would like to remind our viewers that nature helps protect us. Marshes, dunes, bay islands, they're more than just scenery. They slow down waves, absorb floodwaters, and help keep our shore towns safe. When we take care of nature, it takes care of us.
Awesome. And we are back with Angela Anderson. We're talking about, well, we talked about a lot. We talked about Clam Cove. We talked about the Long Beach Township Field Station. Let's talk a little bit about the money side of things. You know, you're pretty creative in getting some of these grants and funding to do the things that are important to our back bays. Is it just a matter of kind of trying to whack all the moles and see what mole is the one with the money in it? Is it something, you have a detailed approach to this? What is your motivation for approaching funding to have some of these coastal resiliency projects?
I don't know. It's been ingrained in my career for a long time. I've been a trained and professional grant writer. I'm also just a writer and a storyteller, filmmaker. So it kind of comes naturally, right? That writing process. So once you sort of start to know where to look for different funding and how to match make, because there's so many phases in it. Grant writing is pieces of it, but the big picture of it is grant making, is like the fancy term where you are looking at what matches you. Who you know, you might have a project, so do you take that and look for the funding, or do you see what funding's out there and see which way you could maybe you know, fit into their goals and objectives, right, without losing your mission. So there's a lot of that sort of I'm just gonna say matchmaking, and it's a lot of wordplay in convincing, if you have thousands of applicants, what makes you so special, right? So that's where you really have to be able to concisely write what makes you so special, so that when a reviewer is looking at that, something stands out. And I do believe that it's all the relationships that we've built, the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative, New Jersey Bay Island Initiative. So when we're coming into a funder, we're not just saying, hey, it's a one-off, Township's like thinks this island's really cool and we want to do this one island. We're coming in with this holistic vision, with this sort of whole partnership of agencies. And that stands out, I think. And I feel like that has helped us be successful in gaining grants and through the regulatory system of it. And I would say on the non-grant side, you know, because you have to shake the bushes in other places, the private funding is out there, and there's, in some cases, they're required to expend a certain amount of money. So you kind of got to find that and see what their goals are and where you might fit in there. I love it. I could write, you know, with my eyes closed. It's something I really enjoy. So that, I think, is a little bit rare, maybe.
I think you're in the minority for that one.
Yeah. Angela, is that a lot of what the kind of off season, obviously peak season, you know, public outreach is huge. In addition to the funding and like the search for funding in the off season, what are some of those responsibilities, you know, during the quieter months of the year?
That's right. So, you know, as project manager, you're continuing those relationships all the way through. You know, you're reporting to your funders. You're keeping your projects on a timeline. When can people do field work and when they can't? You know, testing out different materials that we might use for bagging material, and what are the sources of various bagging, so we're not always putting maybe plastic in the ecosystem for the shell bags. So the off season is great because this is my office. It's quiet. You know, I work, you know, 4 days a week, and then I go up and ski on the weekends, and then I come back and I'm nice and fresh, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
But it's a nice balance, because if it was busy here all the time, it would be impossible to make the progress that we have with funding, permitting, and the project progress. So we have a nice balance here.
Awesome. Well, Angela, thank you so much for all this information. We'll definitely have you back on again. We should mention Long Beach Township is a New Jersey Coastal Coalition municipality, and you are part of that. So, you know, we appreciate you spending more time with us at the coalition and helping us here. All right, we're going to go to the one thing we can't stop talking about, tidal flooding or otherwise. Dan, you got anything for us?
I don't have much. I mean, we talk about it like throughout the year. Summer's my least favorite season, but of the summer months, I do like August. You got the warm water, which we talked about, warmest water of the summer. You got the occasional shots of fall or somewhat less humid air. So I say bring on August. Best part of the summer in my mind.
Alma?
Well, I think after hearing all the wonderful things about the field station, I think what I can't stop thinking about is planning a family trip to come see the turtles and everything else you have to offer. So it's nice.
Come on
I'll-
over anytime.
Yeah. I'll keep it in the LBI family because the first time I went up to the northern part of Long Beach Island and Barnegat Light and Harvey Cedars, more Barnegat Light, I couldn't stop thinking about how big those dunes were over there. I mean, Angela, massive dunes over there, like over 10 feet high. I know they fared fairly well during Sandy, and everyone got hit, of course, but fairly well. But I'll tell you what, I mean, if you want to go to a very scenic, beachy place, I think Barnegat Light, is a great place to do so, and you can see, Barnegat Lighthouse while you're there. So you go to the morning, you spend some time with Angela at the Long Beach Township Field Station, you drive all the way up to the northern end. Angela, that's going to take a while, right, during the summer. Maybe ride your bike might be easier to do that, and go check out Barnegat Light. The dune system there is, I'm not kidding, it's really remarkable, and I think unlike anywhere else or almost anywhere else at the Jersey Shore. So Angela, you're up. You're the last one.
Well, I would say one of the programs that I didn't mention is we have a bring your own kayak. You can come kayak with me on Wednesday mornings around Clam Cove, and we do that every week because I'm an avid kayaker. And we have a nice kayak launch right across the street. So that is one of my favorite pastimes. And that's a nice program where people can bring their kayaks. They've been avid kayakers around here and they're like, wow, now I know what I'm looking at. This is very cool, kind of a thing. So that I welcome anybody to come kayak with me anytime.
Great.
Keep that in mind. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do a tidal flooding talk from the kayak.
That'd be cool.
Our first maritime tidal flooding talk. We should, it's in the wording, tidal flood. I mean, water, flooding.
Right.
We hope it won't flood, but maybe we'll take you up on that one Wednesday.
I plan my route based on incoming or outgoing.
Very, very good, very good. As we sure you would. All right, Angela. Last word to you. Where can people follow more about the field station?
We're LBT Field Station on social media. You can go to our website, lbtfieldstation.com, sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll get weekly updates in the summer, and our calendar is on there, and all the links to some of the groups that we were just talking about, and some old press is on there, so you can get familiar with everything we were saying a little bit deeper.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much, Angela, for the time. On behalf of Dan, Palma, I'm Joe. Thanks for watching another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk. We'll be back with you next Tuesday.